Hello and welcome everyone. This video is going to be about what to do against frequency masking in a track that is already mixed pretty well but sounds kinda crowded. In this video I will show you the plugins Trackspacer 2 and Soothe2 because they are the best plugins for these kind of things in my opinion, and also the only plugins that I have for this task actually. First of all, let me show you the music so that you know how crowded it actually sounds right now. So as you have probably noticed, the vocals are kind of competing with the guitar in the same frequency range, and then there is also this little synthesizer down here that really hasn't got a lot of harmonics in it, so it kind of falls under the radar anyway. But we can do things about that, and we will do that now. This is the group with the guitar on, and I will now instantiate an instance of Trackspacer on it. So here we have Trackspacer 2.5. What you have to do in order to use Trackspacer is you have to enable the sidechain input by just selecting it, and I prepared a little group for that, the git Soothe sidechain group down here, which consists of an FX layer that layers the vocals output, the staccato synth output, and also the output from the real drums in one track. And then I'm outputting this to nowhere so that it's basically a silent track that is still being processed. And that is my sidechain input into Trackspacer, so that Trackspacer does something whenever we hear the vocals, the drums, or the staccato synth. Now you have immediately noticed probably that it kinda removes the entire guitar when you are just dialing it in like this, and that's why there are pre-filters that you can apply to which part of the spectrum should be processed at all. Now I only applied it to the lowest fundamental frequencies of the guitar, and that basically enabled me to dial it in a more transparent fashion. Also what you should do definitely is adjusting the attack and release times a little bit, because when it takes too long to come back with the release time, then it will also be an obvious pumping effect. Unfortunately, this effect, because all of the filters that are in it are very wide, it is always very obvious that there is an effect on the track. That's why I would describe Trackspacer more as a creative choice when it comes to fighting against frequency masking. For example, I really like to use it on material that is very percussive, when you have different types of percussion fighting against each other in some way. I just want to use this very low ratio setting and then also use Soothe on the same track and show you how far you can go with that. Now in Soothe, I was actually the one who suggested to add the sidechain feature. I don't know if anyone else suggested it as well, but when there was no Soothe2 yet, I just talked to Oaksound and told them that it would be cool if there was a sidechain feature. And they said they wouldn't add that to Soothe, but then when Soothe2 dropped, it was suddenly there, and I was very proud about that. Now we give it the same sidechain input and activate the sidechain feature, and then we can start working. Now you immediately noticed probably that even though I'm driving this effect hard, we can still hear the guitar, and that's already one of the main differences between Trackspacer and Soothe, because in Soothe all of the filters can be super sharp depending on the sharpness parameter, and then you definitely still hear the signal. It will just sound a little bit more noisy. Meanwhile, when you are turning down the sharpness parameter, it sounds a bit more like Trackspacer, but it doesn't have the same sweetness in my opinion. It still sounds like a mixing effect. So now let's just dial in some more sane settings. Let's compare before and after. Okay, nice. I like that. Now, one thing that you didn't see, because I did it before starting the video, was I adjusted the gains of each of these inputs, which is also something that you should always consider doing when you are doing work like this. The cool thing about this is you can set different types of gains than the original tracks had. For example, the staccato synthesizer, it really needs a little bit more intensity to cut through the mix. But instead of making this synthesizer louder, because it really doesn't belong to be too loud in my opinion, I'm just making its influence on the sidechain louder here by 9 decibels, and that also does the trick apparently. My conclusion to this is that Soothe2 is better suited for mixing purposes like this. You can just go really hard on it and it still keeps being subtle, and cannot do that if your mix is not very good yet, because then it will not make enough of a difference, of course. But when you are just in a stage where you feel like, okay, now I can start doing the final tweaks and some work about the details, then you can just go for it, in my opinion. The end.